Everyone. This is Mary Duskwood, Director of Operations and Research here at Burtch Works. Today, our data engineer recruiting specialist, Caroline Evans, will be sharing her predictions for the 2021 data engineering hiring market. Now, I'd like to introduce your speaker for today, Caroline Evans. Caroline Evans is Burtch Works' leading data engineering recruiting expert and has spent the past few years lending her significant expertise to thousands of data engineers and their employers. She also shares her insights on data engineering career and hiring on the Burtch Works blog, and a number of her resources are used in data engineer online courses. For those of you who aren't familiar with Burtch Works, we're an executive recruiting firm specializing in quantitative fields like analytics, data science, marketing research, and of course, data engineering. Over the past several years, Burtch Works market insights have been repeatedly mentioned in the press, including the Economist, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, and the Chicago Tribune, among many others. Burtch Works has also been repeatedly recognized by Forbes as one of America's best recruiting firms. All right, Caroline, I'll turn things over to you.
Thanks so much, Mary. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us this morning. After so much change and disruption over the past year, I know many of us are likely glad to be looking forward to a fresh year ahead. As a recruiter that specializes in data engineering, including big data engineers, machine learning engineers, and data architects, among others, I thought it might be interesting to participate in the Burtch Works tradition of annual predictions. And I also wanted to mention that this is our very first data engineering webinar. So while we are certainly in for more potentially unforeseeable shifts in the hiring market in 2021, I wanted to share some of my own insights on where I think the data engineering space is headed. Here are some of my predictions and trends for this year and for the future. And this is based on my conversations with hundreds of data engineers and their employers over the past few years. So number one, product-focused data engineering roles are on the rise. I've had a number of companies over the last year who've had a specific need for data engineers who come from a product organization, or who build products for machine learning and AI solutions. This is across mid-level and executive level roles for the most part, and especially is desirable in the healthcare space. Many data engineers build data products, but having the experience with machine learning and deep learning applications is something that I don't see as often. However, I'm almost certain that this will change as well. So rather than looking for data engineers who can create a data product that will be recycled for various internal clients, many of my searches over the past 6 months have been specifically seeking data engineers coming from a data-driven product company and outside of an IT practice. This is becoming more of a desired background to have since it's unique, and I expect we'll see more of these roles popping up in the future. Another thing I wanted to mention is that industry experience is slowly becoming more of a requirement in data engineering. We are used to seeing this in data science and analytics, but it's always been a little different with engineers. Most of the data engineers that I speak with tell me that data is data at the end of the day, and as long as you have the experience working with a certain volume of data and the tools that go along with it, it shouldn't be as much of a requirement to have industry experience. So this idea might be changing from what I'm seeing in the market continues. And to give you an idea of some of the industries requiring this experience, it would be healthcare, yet again, and also advertising. Number two, data engineers being asked to do DevOps work. So with the rise of the machine learning engineer, many teams are looking for engineers who are adept at cleaning data, as well as building machine learning pipelines, productionalizing models, debugging, troubleshooting, and maintenance, which is a lot of responsibility under one roof. DevOps work has always been a small piece of what a data engineer does, but I'm seeing roles pop up that look like, honestly, the purple unicorn, reminding me of what we used to see maybe 5, 7 years ago when the data scientist job title was becoming increasingly more popular. I will actually be touching on this again in a few minutes. In many conversations I've had with data engineers, one of the leading reasons for wanting to leave their current job is usually because of either the tools they are using or want to use, or that their role has become something that they didn't intend to do in the first place. So I found that while many engineers have these versatile skill sets, including DevOps, they are much more interested in sticking with data engineering work. Number 3, the lines between a big data engineer and data scientist will continue to blur. So following along with number 2, I'm also seeing an increased interest from clients looking to hire big data engineers who deal with data from end to end, and this includes statistics and modeling. This is an interesting topic because, like I mentioned earlier, the data engineer title is still fairly new, and data scientists used to be required to do it all. Breaking it up and having a data engineer do one thing and a data scientist do another is really important. And if this shift continues, I think it will not serve companies well at all. These skill sets are different. And yes, there is a lot of overlap between the two, but I feel that it's extremely difficult to have one person be efficient at performing both responsibilities. There's a really great article out there called The Rise of the Data Engineer, and it's by Maxime Bushman, and he's a former data engineer of Facebook, Airbnb, and Lyft, and I believe even Google. But more importantly, he's the creator of Apache Airflow, which is one of the most popular tools out there right now. I love this article for a lot of reasons, but I think it describes the role of a data scientist and data engineer in an interesting way. And I definitely encourage those who are not familiar with it to read. And I will include a brief excerpt below. So data science as a discipline was going through its adolescence of self-affirming and self-defining itself. At the same time, data engineering was the slightly younger sibling, but it was going through something similar. The data engineering discipline took cues from its sibling while also defining itself in opposition and finding its own identity. Like data scientists, data engineers write code. They're highly analytical and are interested in data visualization. Unlike data scientists, and inspired by our more mature parent, software engineering, data engineers build tools, infrastructure, frameworks, and services. In fact, it's arguable that data engineering is much closer to software engineering than it is data science. One of my clients recently described a machine learning engineer as a full stack data scientist, and I've been specifically noticing an increase in those roles within the medical and healthcare related fields. This focus on finding someone who can do it all could potentially be because of the type of data these professionals are dealing with. IoT or streaming data, I'm not sure, but this brings me to my next prediction. Hybrid roles. The unicorn is coming back. So predictions 2, 3, and 4, they're all part of a larger trend that I'm seeing, which is the increasing prevalence of hybrid roles or companies attempting to find someone for a hybrid role. One example could be a role with data engineering, machine learning engineering, and DevOps all rolled into one position, similar to what I mentioned in my second prediction around DevOps. Recently, I had a client looking for something like this. And what ended up happening is they hired someone in only one of those areas, machine learning. I'm sure it would have been filled much faster if this was the direction to begin with. Instead, searches will drag out for months, sometimes even a year, until the job description is reevaluated and simplified. The other issue with some of these hybrid positions is the interview process. I find that if you have 3 jobs all in one, you then have to interview with all the people in the organization with these skill sets to assess your technical abilities in each. At as most of us know, candidates will fall off in the interview process and take other job offers as this drags on and on. There are a few reasons why we might see companies do this. And one is that if the data organization is still relatively green, they might not be exactly sure what they need just yet, or what makes sense for them. So they're looking to find someone who can do a bit of everything. Another reason could be that they're a small company who might have a limited ability to hire a large team of data professionals. So they want to find someone or a few people who can wear multiple hats. And this is a really common situation that we see. The good news is, as a recruiter, I definitely love data engineers who have had this experience, especially early on in their career. However, I wouldn't expect someone to remain in this type of situation for the long term. But I think it can really help you grow your career early on. You get, a lot more exposure to tools and different problems. So it really can be beneficial. From what I've seen and heard from engineers, most companies who attempt to fill positions like this are doing themselves a disservice. Sometimes it also can give candidates the impression that the company doesn't really know what they want or need. Not only is it very difficult to find someone who's an expert in many fields at once, but also hiring data engineers for these roles can be genuinely misleading and frustrating if they find themselves often working on different tasks that are not exactly in their wheelhouse, or don't fall under what they prefer to do most of the time. From a hiring perspective, I think it's really important to address expectations and duties early on to avoid declined job offers and employee turnover. Number 5, more data engineering jobs are going 100% remote. As my colleagues pointed out in their trends section of their data science salary report, there has been a noticeable increase in remote working opportunities, and this has a variety of advantages for the talent market. This opens doors for both data engineers looking for opportunities in a variety of locations, as well as for employers who are looking to broaden their talent reach. It also can reduce the cost of hiring substantially, especially if companies are able to access talent in less expensive areas and don't have to pay for relocation expenses. Work from home and it being the new normal. So here we have some comments that we've collected along the way, over the course of the pandemic, asking people about remote work and how they feel about it. There certainly has not been a huge rush for people going back to the offices. Many companies who might not have been open to remote work prior to the pandemic have now been able to see firsthand some of the many benefits of working remotely through the success of their team over the last year. And many of the data engineers I work with now prefer remote work, or at least more flexibility. The truth is, commuting takes up a lot of our time. So remote work always has been something, that people tend to like, but it also helps them to put more time in at their desk, for better or for worse. So the big question is, what will some of the long-term impacts be from working from home? It will certainly widen the talent pool and companies will have greater options. On the other hand, job seekers will also have more employment choices, so it's even more competitive than it was before. Will this reduce salaries? The answer to this is maybe. To give you an example, Mark Zuckerberg said that Facebook employees will have salary adjustments if they choose to live away from the headquarters in Silicon Valley. Another big impact that we've seen is onboarding challenges. For professionals with experience, it might not be as much of a challenge, but for professionals in the first few years of their career, it could be a real challenge. We would love to hear what companies are doing if they are hiring. More work from home questions are based on collaboration, sense of communication, and work culture. How do you do well in a long-term work from home environment? And last but certainly not least, productivity. In the beginning of the pandemic, people seemed surprised at how productive everyone was, but questions are now starting to come out about that. Childcare is still a big issue, with remote learning becoming the norm, at least for now. It's a really tough balancing act for parents. Many parents are asking their employers if they can go part-time or have more flexible hours to balance all of this out. And some have altogether decided to quit their jobs to take care of their kids. Number 6, there's a huge acceleration of on-premises databases transitioning to the cloud. I've already been seeing this happen in my own conversations with data engineers and their employers over the years, but the migration to the cloud is accelerating. In fact, Gartner predicts that by 2022, 75% of all databases will be deployed or migrated to the cloud platform. This has many advantages, including cost and time savings, reliability, and mobility. Speed is really the key here. Businesses are trying to keep up and serve their customers' needs as quickly as possible, and the cloud really makes that happen. Number 7, with the shift to cloud, business intelligence engineering will shift as well. So with this transition, of course, will come different tools and new ways to accomplish goals for the organization. While dashboards have been a long mainstay in business intelligence, we're already seeing many teams move away from static dashboards to solutions that are more easily tailored to the individual. With the progression of artificial intelligence, internal data products will be replacing pivot tables and dashboards. Again, this goes back to speed and productivity. Another thing I wanted to note is that the role of the BI engineer is not going anywhere. It is still a highly desirable skill set and is only going to get more exciting with the evolution of self-service analytics platforms. Number 8, the lines between data lakes and data warehouses will continue to blur. Data lakes were initially designed to take on unstructured data. And while data warehouses have also evolved, I think we may see more of a mix between these two approaches. Data lakes will become more fine-tuned and have more capabilities, which has huge potential to advance machine learning and artificial intelligence. Number 9, it will be harder than ever to attract data engineers to a Hadoop ecosystem. So Hadoop has been on the decline for years, but now more than ever, it will be extremely difficult to attract data engineering talent with a Hadoop ecosystem and no cloud capabilities. Cloud is everywhere right now, and strong talent are drawn to organizations that are using the latest tools and technologies to push the business forward. I've had many calls with job seekers and hiring leaders who are trying to get away from Hadoop. This isn't a huge surprise, especially with the rise of Apache Spark and AWS. Things have been changing very quickly, and not having cloud experience has become very limiting for candidates seeking new opportunities. In terms of in-demand cloud platforms, so Amazon Web Services, known as AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform, also known as GCP, are always in demand. AWS especially has a lot of flexibility, so it's a highly desired addition to your toolkit. Obviously, there are many, many different tools that go along with all of these products and serve different functions. And so it's becoming increasingly common for employers to target their searches around these specific tools. I have this conversation with early career data engineers quite often, and even more experienced engineers who are trying to transition into the big data world. We usually discuss different options on how to up their skill set when they don't have the opportunity through their current employer. This is such a common concern, but I'm happy to say that I've seen a number of candidates work really hard on their own time by gaining professional certifications in specific tools and technologies and creating an online portfolio of their work. It not only showcases your work, but it actually, in my experience, has a really positive impact on hiring managers, especially when you include that sort of thing on your resume. It shows your passion and your drive for the work you're doing, and also the work you want to be doing professionally. There's a lot of questions around boot camps. Are they worth it? And to be honest, I don't think it always takes a boot camp to get where you need to go in data engineering, but online courses can be very valuable if you want to be more competitive in the market. I also can't stress enough that in addition to taking a course, it's really important to start actually using the programming languages and tools you're learning. So that wraps up my predictions for this year. It'll be really interesting to see where we go from here. I wanted to thank everyone for attending today. I have truly enjoyed getting to know the data engineering discipline, and I really want to thank all the data engineers I've spoken to over the last few years for teaching me so much. And I hope that all of you who are listening today will stay in touch, and definitely please let me know if you need help with any recruiting, or if you just want to jump on a call and do some brainstorming about your career. I'd love to chat. Now I'll hand things back over to Mary, who has a few announcements before we get to the Q&A. And I hope you all got your questions in.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. That was really great and interesting. As someone who is new to the data engineering world, I learned a lot. And if you're looking to add to your data engineering staff, we would be happy to help and speak with you about some brainstorming and ideas. We offer contingency and retained services from entry level up to senior leadership. Just send an email to info@burtchworks.com to learn more. And for hiring market insights, check out burtchworks.com/blog, where you can find Caroline's blogs on COVID-19 hiring trends, resume and interview tips specifically for data engineers, and hiring advice. You can also follow Burtch Works across our social media channels to stay up to date on our latest posts. And we're also currently working on a series of career videos for data engineers that you'll be able to find over the upcoming weeks on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/BurtchWorks. This recorded webinar will also be available, so make sure to keep an eye on that. And now we have the Q&A portion. So we've got a few really great questions for you, Caroline, so I hope you're ready. The first question we have is about Snowflake. Apparently, Snowflake at many organizations is becoming, or at least this person's organization, is becoming much more prevalent. Are hiring firms, are hiring managers seeking this skill set in greater numbers?
That is a great question. And the answer to that is yes. This is a highly popular technology, especially with the cloud becoming more of the norm. Snowflake is apparently very flexible, and it can support all three major cloud platforms. So from what I hear, it's really user-friendly and makes building data pipelines a lot easier. So candidates are always talking about it. Actually, and by candidates, I mean data engineers. The companies we work with as well, it's typically on a job description. I've been seeing that a lot over the last, I don't know, year and a half. So definitely, yes, I highly recommend learning it if you have not had any exposure yet.
Awesome. And then what about any tips for new graduates that are looking to break into data engineering?
Sure. Yeah, no, this is a great question. And I do get this quite often on, phone calls with some of my more junior folks. So my advice would be to keep learning, like I was saying earlier in the webinar, keep learning and practicing your craft while you're, on the job hunt. So even if you have like a break in, in between jobs, stay active, keep up with your skills. But for someone just getting out of school, if you don't have work experience, I suggest getting an internship, paid or unpaid, it doesn't matter. Any kind of experience that, having that under your belt will be really valuable. And, the other part of it is you can start meeting people. So you're networking. The more people you know in this industry, and, the more you're really going to grow and the more opportunity that will present itself. So, the other thing too is connect with recruiters. Recruiters like us at Burtch Works, we're here to help you. We, are happy to give you advice on your resume if you want us to take a quick look. That's something I tend to do quite often.
Okay, awesome. Excellent advice. And then we have a question from somebody who's going through the interview process and wants to know, what are some of the most common reasons for a data engineer to be rejected during the process?
Yeah, so this is a tough question because there's a ton of reasons, but I would say, one of the most overlooked reasons would be communication. Something as simple as not being prepared to describe your work in a clear and concise way can really impact, you moving forward, because that's something that's really going to be, depending on the job, of course, if that's something that's really important in the job and you have to work across different organizations within the company, you have to be able to communicate to a non-technical audience. So I've seen, this problem with junior candidates who just maybe aren't aware of this, which, that happens a lot. And, even some of the more experienced candidates, they could have 15, 20 years of experience and maybe never got this advice. I don't know. So that's one thing that I definitely would, think about, and you can always practice the way you present your skills. The other thing, and like I mentioned before, there are a ton of reasons, but the other reasons might be, your coding skills aren't up to, the level they need for that particular role. Maybe you use Python, but they need Scala. There's a lot of reasons there. And then maybe you haven't had the opportunity to work with large volumes of data, or you don't have cloud experience. The cloud experience thing definitely comes up a lot.
All right, good to know. And then I think we're going to squeeze in one final question here. What would you say, from your experience and expertise, are the most valuable skills to have as a data engineer?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think, with data engineering, there's a lot of tools that, come into play. So I think really staying up to date on the latest and greatest technologies that are coming out. To give you an example, earlier we were talking about Snowflake. Airflow is also extremely popular. Kubernetes, Docker, so some of those containers, communication again, and just, being, if you're wanting to get into the data science, to work on a data scientist team, I know I get that a lot from candidates. How do I move into, out of IT and into, a data science team? Be familiar with what the data scientists do and, be able to talk that talk, because that's very, very valuable. And yeah, I would say that that's pretty much it. And then the cloud, the cloud is extremely important. So those would be my most valuable skills I would recommend.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Caroline. This has been a lot of information, so I hope everyone enjoyed. And thank you very much for joining us. And if you want to reach out, let us know. We are always happy to listen and talk about careers and hiring plans. So you can email us at info@burtchworks.com. Thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.